All right, we got a 2011 Honda Accord Crosstour here with the 3.5 liter V6 automatic transmission, and it's got a P0430 code, which is our front catalytic converter. The P0420 code is the rear catalytic converter. So today we'll be showing you how to remove and replace your front cat. It does have to come out of the top of the engine compartment. It does not drop down below. So what you got to do, you can see I've got a couple things apart here. I've already dealt with all the rust and stuff like that, so try to keep this video short and sweet. First thing we're going to do, remove our engine cover. So we just turn these flathead screws a quarter turn, and then they just unlock, and there's also two little dowels that go into rubber grommets, so you just lift that up, pops off. Next thing that we're going to have to do is remove this fan shroud. So we've got a steel shroud electric fan and a plastic electric fan, and they're held in by four 10mm bolts here, here, and then two on the bottom. And then we've also got an electrical connector that's at the bottom that we need to unplug. I found it was easiest if we remove this piece here. There is a bunch of plastic push pins in these holes, so the center pops up. You can use like a small flathead screwdriver or a trim tool, and once you remove those, we can get this thing out of the road, and that gives us a little bit more room to remove this washer fluid, or this coolant reservoir. So you just pull this hose off, and then this thing pulls out of here. Now, it wasn't that simple. When I went to pull it out, it didn't just come out. The bracket was super rusty, and you can see there is a recessed section right here for this tang. And I found what really helped was using a trim tool. I actually have one of these trim tools. Lyle makes these, and they call it an upholstery removal tool. But I found it was like the perfect shape for getting in behind that to unlatch it, and then just wiggling it back and forth a whole bunch to get it to free up and come off of that bracket. Once we get that bracket off, that's going to give us some more room to get this thing out, because that bottle sort of overhangs over this thing. So remove those two screws, and then I'll show you underneath where the other two are. Mine were very, very rusty, and 3 of the 4 broke off, which really sucks. Obviously we can't heat those nuts because this is a plastic radiator, and we don't want to compromise the plastic. I'm going to pull this out just to show you where the connector is. You can see there's our electrical connector. It's going to be sitting in the car like this. So when we unclip the connector, we have to pull it down and away. And there's also another bracket here that has like a harness retention clip that keeps the harness in place. And there's just 2 tabs that you can squeeze in on and push it through. So I'll give you some more details and better image on that when we put it up in the air. Another thing that we need to do is remove our oxygen sensor. Actually, you could just, if you want, leave it in, but I'm going to say take it out. So I've got an oxygen sensor socket. I forget exactly what size it is, but pretty simple, just unscrews. Now this piece here actually attaches onto this bracket. There are 2 metal tangs that stick downwards, and both of the oxygen sensors for this is your upstream, and then the one that's down at the bottom, which is your downstream, connect to this bracket here. And it's very simple to remove these. So it'll be sitting on there like so, and then to remove them underneath, all you've got to do is push in on this tab. So it's going to be sitting like this. You push in on the tab, and then you can push the connector down and off of that metal tang. Do that for both of them if you want to remove both. There's some more retention clips on these harnesses for the downstream sensor. And then I like to just remove this to get it out of the way so that we've got more room to work. Once we've got the sensor out, We now need to remove our ignition coil. I forget which coils it wants us to remove, but this bracket needs to come off, and I'm gonna say the center coil at least. So just a clip here, you push in on that, and this unlocks and disconnects. We also have a 10mm nut. And then once we get the 10mm nut off, we can remove our ignition coil, and it just pulls out. And then once that's off, that gives us access to remove these two 10mm bolts for this bracket. And then we can get this bracket off. It just buys us a little bit more room. We need all the room we can get to get this catalytic converter out of here. So I'm just gonna set that there. We now have 4 12mm nuts on studs. Now I'm gonna leave those for now because there's a bracket that we need to undo underneath, and also the Y pipe that connects both of the catalytic converters together, which then goes into a flex pipe and then into the third cat. And that piece looks like this. So it sits underneath of the car like this. We've got on each, this is where the cat would go to. We've got 3, you'll find there's 3 nuts that go onto studs. And this one was extremely rusty. As you can see, this is all that's left of the flange that goes to our secondary cat, which is the third cat in line. We have one hanger that's near the end there. And then there are some gaskets in there. I'll give you some part numbers in a minute. I'm gonna throw this thing up in the air so we can take a look underneath. I'll show you where that other mount brace is and some other hardware. All right, so when we get underneath of this thing, we've got this big plastic shield that needs to come off. So once again, there's a whole bunch of these plastic push pins that look like this, and the center just pops out, and then you can remove them. That's what the shield looks like. So you can see there's a whole bunch of them that hold this thing in, and as well, this goes up into like the wheel well area where you're gonna find you've got here, and same on the other side. There's another one here. So we get that shield off. That's gonna buy us a bunch of room. So here's the bottom of the cat. So you're gonna have a downstream oxygen sensor in there. And then also you'll find, this is the area right here where you're going to be working on the 2 bolts on the lower rad fan, or the lower rad fan bolts, and also the electrical connector. Here's the connector here. That's what the locking tab looks like. So you can either push right there or use like a small flathead screwdriver or something to pop that up. And there's the retention tab there. You can see the 2 sides that get pushed in. So once you get that off, you can get the fan off. The tricky part about these lower bolts though is this one that's right up here. It's right up against this metal brace that's sort of holding one of our lines. I think that's either for our power steering or transmission cooler. It's part of the rad by the looks of things. I think it's transmission. So like I say, you can only use certain tools like a wrench. I couldn't even get a ratchet and a socket in there because it was just too deep, right? So not enough room. The other one, part of the frame, or I guess it'd be the lower rad support, is in the way. So you have to use a ratchet and a socket. A wrench won't really work. Too many things in the way. So I found just with the right size extension, I could go over top of this frame and then go in. There's an air conditioning line that's in your way, but you can just sort of move it out of the road in order to get to that bolt. Now, this is the bottom of the cat. You can see there's a bracket that sits in here like so. And I had to torch that lower bolt out because it was just completely rotten. There was pretty much no head on it. And then the other bolt up top, had to remove it up there. It was actually somewhat normal. I believe it's a 14mm. They should both be 14mm if I'm not mistaken. This lower one might be a 12, but I'm pretty sure it's 14. And then yeah, so that Y pipe, like I say, there are gonna be nuts on these studs, so you can remove those. Same with this side. Not much left of this flange. It's pretty hurting. but there is gaskets that go between them. And if yours looks like this, good luck. If you can use a torch, that's my choice. But obviously, if you're gonna use a torch, be careful, it's fire. And then the last thing that you're going to need to remove before we go ahead and try to get this out is the EGR pipe. So you can see there's a flange up here. Here's actually the gasket that's still on there. 2 studs, and you'll find there should be 2 12mm nuts. I believe they're 12 mil anyways. I'll have to check. They might be 14. And you take those off. Mine were severely rotten. Once again, almost looked like there was no nuts on it, just rusty pieces of whatever left on there holding it together. So you get those 2 off, and then I'm gonna lower this thing back down. I'll show you up top where the other 2 12mm bolts are that go to the valve, the EGR valve. All right, here's the EGR valve right here, and there's our EGR pipe. So there's gonna be 2 12mm bolts that you remove, and this pipe comes off. And then there will be gaskets, like I say, on both ends of the pipe. So once we get this EGR pipe out, now we're pretty much free to remove our 4 12mm nuts that actually hold the manifold to the head. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove those, and we'll see if we can't sneak this thing out. Like I say, I think it's just this coil that we had to remove, but I could be wrong. We're about to find out. All right, now don't be worried if these things take the studs with them. Like I say, it's studded into the head with a nut on it, so a lot of these threads are rusted, and the rust gets all jammed up in the threads, and then instead of the nut coming off, it just loosens the stud, takes the stud right out. So not a big deal. Just gonna go ahead and loosen all these off. I'm probably gonna leave one in there that's just barely tight so that I can get one hand on the cat, and then I can just remove the last stud with my hand to pull this thing out. All right, so we got the hardware out. We're gonna pull this cat off. There is a gasket in behind this. Be careful, it's multi-layer steel, so it can be very sharp. It could cut you. So just be careful. And pull this thing up carefully. We don't want to damage the radiator. There's the cat. You can see the shield, or what's left of the shield anyways. These things have a tendency to rot off. And we've got replacement cats here. If you want to buy an OEM Honda one, you're going to be about $1,000 Canadian. So whatever that is, 700 bucks American. And that does not include any of the gaskets or the hardware. That is literally just the cat. And I don't even know if that comes with the studs or anything like that. And it definitely does not come with the shield, I don't think. So all that stuff's extra. If you want, you can go check the link in the description for these cats that we got from Auto Shack. So you can actually get both of the catalytic converters for I think it was $411 shipped. That includes taxes. That's Canadian price, by the way. So, and that's for both of them, front and back bank. It does come with some hardware, I believe, and gaskets. So let's just open this up and we'll take a look and see what we got. So yeah, we got hardware, gaskets, comes with a shield welded on there. Now it's not perfect, like it's not OEM quality, of course. They're cheap, right? But we're gonna try them and see. The customer didn't want to spend a lot of money on them, so this was the option. And they actually don't look too bad. I mean, if they work, right? So that's the big thing. They are different from front to back because that one has the EGR outlet on it, right? So we can see this one here must be for the front. There's our EGR port. And you can see this one as well does not come with any studs. So we're going to have to figure out something with the studs, or you could probably just use bolts, which is probably, oh, they did give us studs. Look at that. So these gaskets here, they're cheap gaskets. but I mean, they'll work. So you got one gasket for the bottom flange where the Y pipe attaches, one gasket for the cylinder head, one gasket for our EGR pipe. They give us 3 studs. That'll be for the very bottom. Also give us new nuts for the very bottom, 2 bolts for the EGR, and you get no hardware for the cylinder head. So that's fine. Now it was kind of confusing on the website to which manifold went where, because it says passenger front and drivers, or no, it said passenger side, I think, and driver's side, but this is a transversely mounted engine, so really it should have said front and back, and I wasn't too sure which one was which. So for reference, we've got 209-1106. Is that the same as this? No, it's not. Okay, so there's the number right there, EMCC 774147. That's going to be the front one. And then I'm just going to open up this other one, which should be the back one. All right, so part number on this one is EMCC 774148. And you can see here, looks identical to the other one. Obviously the shape's going to be a little different, and we do not have our EGR port on the bottom, but we still have the upper and lower oxygen sensor ports, and the and our flanges look very similar. So now I did buy gaskets and hardware from Honda, so if you don't like these gaskets and you want to go with the multi-layer steel gaskets, you can get those. So for the heads, this is the number that you're going to need for the multi-layer steel gasket. And then we've got some hardware. Now these nuts, they go on here. So for your Y pipe, we've got 3 nuts per flange, and I don't exactly know if one of those is a part. Oh, right there. There's a part number, 90212-SA5-003. Then we've got this gasket here. This goes at the end of the Y pipe where it connects to the secondary or the third catalytic converter, the little one underneath. Part number for that is 18393-SDB-A00. And then we've got 4 nuts here. These will be for the very top studs that hold the manifold catalytic converter to the head. And then we've got some other gaskets as well that I got in that go on the Y pipe that connect to the bottom of the manifold. And there we go, 18212-SA7-003. And they're like a smaller version of this gasket here. So that pretty much fills in all the details. Hopefully your hardware and the bracket and stuff like that isn't super rusty like mine was, because it's going to be really, really difficult for you to remove all that stuff if you're trying to do this at home, in the driveway or whatever. Without certain tools, it's almost going to be impossible. Like I say, the area where you're going to be working in, you are going to have a really tough time without heat. I almost had no choice but to use heat, because like I say, there's basically no nut left on the studs. So to get in there, an extractor wouldn't even work. And I don't know what you would do without heat. I use an air hammer and a torch. So what we're going to do now is just prep our surfaces. You can see in here, this aluminum does have a small amount of corrosion around the edges and stuff. So what I'm going to do is clean this and prep it. And I'm also going to prep the Y pipe down below so that everything's ready to go. And we'll start the assembly process. All right, so one thing I noticed is when they welded this, they didn't like machine it or anything like that. I'm sure it's just a cut flange. They put it on and weld it. But you can see it's raised up. And that's a no-go in my book. So we've got to smooth that out before we go ahead. And I'm actually just going to stick a rag in there so that, you know, a bunch of like stuff doesn't get down into the catalyst. And then I'm going to grind that down flush. I'm going to use the gaskets that came with these cats, even though I have the steel ones, because I'm afraid they might not seal up, seeing as I'm going to grind this down. It's not 100% flat, but yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. All right, this is the stuff you got to watch out for when you buy cheap parts. We got this cat that's actually a manifold as well. And you can see this surface here is not flat. They've welded this flange on here and they did not smooth this down at all. So if you go to put this on with a multi-layer steel gasket, guess what? It's not going to seal very well. So watch out. All right, let's put that on. Don't forget to take the rag out. Oh, I better get my light out of there. Oh, by the way, so these things that broke off, you can see there's a nut that's supposed to be inside there for the threads. I sort of did some haggard stuff, but I mean, what else are you gonna do, right? So I just used like a little nail on some vice grips, heated up with the torch so it's red hot, melted a hole through there, and then put a screw in there so that I can feed a zip tie to secure our radiator fans. I mean, like, the guy, oh, I better put a gasket on there. The guy doesn't really want to spend a lot of money on this. So, yeah, he doesn't really want to put a rad in it because the rad's not leaking. So I completely understand, you know, but what are you going to do, right? You just want to get it fixed. So that's the way we're doing it. All right, guys, we are going to torque these down now. 24 foot-pounds. That's the spec. And it did not show me any sort of procedure for these as far as like crisscross. So we're just gonna go around in a circle. And I'll probably make a second pass over them as well just to make sure. All right, we're just gonna recondition this surface here for the EGR pipe. This surface here too, and this surface. Now, ideally a new EGR pipe would be great, but like I say, when cost comes into effect, we're going to reuse this. You can see the flange here, not very good. I'm going to grind this down so that a nut will sit against that flush, and in this case, the kit comes with bolts. So we will no longer be using these stud and nuts. We will be using bolts. So I need to make sure that's flat so that we have equal clamping force. And I'm going to clean this up too. It's all rusty and crappy. And obviously, yeah, the mating surfaces, we'll clean those up. I got the bolts cleaned up. We're going to reuse these bolts for the top. And then, like I said, the kit comes with new bolts for the bottom. So I'm going to get this tidied up. All right, we got. All right, so we've got our gasket. You can see our pipe is ready to be mounted up here. And sorry, my hands are kind of going to be in the way. Try to get one of these bolts started in here. It's a little bit of an awkward position, but we'll see if we can get one of these started. The worst part is you can't see the flange unless you got like a mirror or something. You're just going to be like doing it by feel pretty much. So that's what we're going to have to do. All right, so we've got our EGR pipe installed with the gaskets. Now, it was fairly difficult to install as the flange locations are not 100% perfect. So the bolt holes were a bit of a pain to do. Now, seeing as the bottom is sort of like blind holes, you can't actually look at them. I ended up starting the bottom ones first and then putting these ones in. And I found I could get one bolt in there, and then the other one I sort of had to start it in the hole, but then with the socket and an extension, sort of push it down so that it was straight and then start threading it in. And it did go in. I didn't cross thread anything, so it's doable. But like I say, it's not a 100% perfect fit where all the holes line up. Anyhow, moving on, I installed our downstream sensor there with that connector here, installed it onto this bracket. Then I put our upstream sensor, installed that, and I'm just going to clip this on now. And then, well, now we got that on, we could plug these in. So make sure everything's seated there. This just snaps into place like so. And then we can go ahead and plug these in. And I think what I'm going to do now is go underneath and I'll install the downstream sensor into the cat, and I think that's all I need to do down there. I'll take my light out and then we'll put the fan in. Beautiful. All right, and then we got a bracket that goes over here, the upper rad support bracket. Two 10mm bolts. I have to get a new one because the other one stripped out. All right, get rid of that. Now we can put this thing in. Now, seeing as we got it all plugged in and everything, we have to sort of twist it up counterclockwise so that we go to put it in. As it's threading in, the cable unwinds and isn't all twisted up. So annoying because there's like everything in the way, so you don't get like any throw with your socket. You go to put it on, it turns like just a bit. Oh, I thought I had it tight. Oops, sorry. I thought I had it tightened down all the way with my fingers, but apparently not. There. All right. So now we're going to install our Y pipe. So. It's too thick to get beside the pipe. All right, you can see the remainder of the nuts that were on it. Literally, that's like what was holding the pipe on. Next to nothing. It was leaking out of this flange. And then, yeah, this, not even salvageable. I'm just gonna take a Sawzall and cut this off and probably just weld it together, I think. So, I'm gonna try to clean these threads up though. I'll run a dye over them, and I gotta try to salvage them. So I guess I'll put the studs in this one in the meantime.
Should you pull those threads out?
Yeah, I was gonna double nut it, but it's just such a pain. Like, there's no room, right? So trying to get a wrench in there, and then you tighten them together. Yeah, it's just a pain. So whatever, I'm just gonna greasily do it with these vice grips. Well, this really sucks. Trying to get this out of here. It's like super like rusted and corroded and stuck in there. So I have to like chisel it out. All right, we finally got that thing out. That was so crusty and stuck in there. And now we got one more to do over here. We'll give that a proper cleaning. All right, these studs are M8 by 1.25. In case you're just wondering, in case you're eating nuts or you want to do the same thing and run a dye over it. So. Alrighty. We got that pipe on there. The flange actually fit like near perfect up there, so that's good. We're on. I've got my gaskets in there. I tried to clean it out the best I could, those grooves where the gaskets are, but it wasn't perfect. You know, the rust is eating a bunch out of the pipe, so I did use a little bit of high temperature silicone underneath of that gasket, just as an extra preventative measure, because I don't want to take this thing back apart. So we don't want any leaks either. So we get these nuts started. I'm going to put 3 more. I got brand new nuts for this flange over here as well. And then I'll probably just end up cutting this out. I just sort of wanted to hang this here in the meantime and get it sort of situated. I'm gonna put some silicone spray on that hanger so it goes on nice. Sorry, I don't mean to blind you. Yeah, that silicone spray makes a world of a difference. All right, now what I might do, actually, never mind. I'm just going to cut this out and weld it. All right, so we just like haggardly welded it together, which it would barely even weld because the metal was so thin, and then it blow through and it's rusty on the other side. So we haggardly welded it together and then used some muffler cement to try to shut it up. And I think it's gonna do the trick, but this is just a temporary fix so that we can do a diagnostic road test to confirm that the cat is working and that everything's good. And I'll be cutting that out and fixing that tomorrow. We're just running out of time in the day. It's almost midnight, so let's go for that road test. Oh, my thumb does not like that. Fuck these. All right, we took it for a drive. Monitors pass, so cat fixed it. If you have any questions, throw them in the comment section below. Be glad to answer any questions you might have. And if you have any tips or tricks on doing things any better, let me know. I think that's it. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video, subscribe for more content, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.